What happens when the man who owns 18 stores pretends to be a new delivery driver and ends up learning more in 2 shifts than he had from a year of meetings? Sterling Whitmore stared at the pile of customer complaints spread across his desk. His family had built the company from a single sandwich shop in the 80s to a delivery chain with 18 locations across the Midwest. When his father passed, Sterling took over. He modernized the brand, brought in tech, and built a strong corporate team. But lately, something felt off. He'd always trusted the numbers. Sales were steady, but Yelp reviews told a different story. Cold food, late deliveries, rude responses. One review stood out. A woman said after her order arrived late and wrong, she called the store and the supervisor told her, "That's not my problem. Call someone who cares." Sterling rubbed his temple. He'd never met most of the store-level staff. With 18 locations and a corporate office 3 hours from most of them, it wasn't practical. And with high turnover in delivery, no one would recognize him. He made a call. "I want to go in as a new driver. No one at the store can know. I'll use a different name, grow out the beard, get some glasses. I'll blend in." His assistant hesitated. "Which store?" He didn't pause. "Store 12. That's the one with the worst customer ratings." 2 days later, Sterling drove up to the store just outside of Dayton in a beat-up sedan. He had a fake name, Sam Whitman, and a resume that said he was recently laid off from a landscaping job. His beard was longer, glasses thick, and he wore a faded hoodie. There was no reason anyone would guess he owned the entire company. The store was inside a small strip mall. From the outside, it looked fine. Inside, it was chaos. A young woman behind the counter was juggling 2 phones. A man in the back yelled, "Another order for pickup." "Who's watching the oven?" Sterling stepped in and waited. No one noticed. After 5 minutes, a tall guy with slicked back hair and a Bluetooth headset finally looked his way. "You knew?" he asked flatly. "Yeah, Sam, I'm Troy, supervisor." "Go clock in. We'll throw you on some runs after lunch rush." Sterling nodded and found the ancient punch-in system. No welcome, no training, just tossed into the fire. By noon, he was in the backseat of a delivery car with Haley, a driver in her 20s with tired eyes and a calm voice. "They always this slammed?" he asked as she pulled out of the lot. "Always. Staff short. They fired 2 guys last week for arguing in front of customers." "Why didn't they hire replacements?" She shrugged. "Troy said it's cheaper this way." Sterling took mental notes. Haley was patient, careful, and knew every shortcut in the city. She even bought her own insulated bag after the store's tour. Later, during a delivery to a nursing home, they got stuck in traffic. The food was 15 minutes late. When they returned, the store phone was ringing nonstop. Troy answered with a sigh. "Yeah, what? Your food was cold, not my fault. You want hot food, order earlier." Sterling froze. The caller must have pushed back because Troy rolled his eyes. "Lady, I don't have time for this. Complain to corporate if you feel like it." "Bye." He hung up and tossed the phone on the counter. Haley glanced at Sterling and whispered, "That happens a lot." Sterling's stomach turned. He stepped outside for a minute, pretending to check directions. In truth, he needed air. He built this company to serve people. His father taught him to care about every customer, even the difficult ones. And now a supervisor was treating complaints like trash. Back inside, Troy tossed him 2 bags. "You're next. Apartment complex on East Ridge. Tip well if you get it there hot." Sterling nodded slowly. "What if they call in?" "They won't. And if they do, I'll deal with it." Sterling drove off, fists tight on the wheel. He didn't know what made him angrier, the disrespect or the way Troy didn't even try to hide it. This wasn't going to be a quick fix, but it was going to be fixed. Sterling's second day began just after 11 in the morning. He arrived early, stood outside the store for a few minutes, and watched as employees filtered in with little urgency. Nobody was smiling. A teenage cashier fumbled with keys to unlock the front door, and a pair of kitchen workers stood beside a dented dumpster, quietly smoking. No one greeted each other. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of fryer oil and something burnt. The prep tables still had traces of flour and crumbs from the night before. A stack of cardboard boxes labeled "Do Not Use Expired" sat beside the walk-in cooler. No one moved them. Sterling walked behind the counter and clocked in. Troy walked out from the back office, sipping from a half-empty energy drink. He didn't look up. You're on register until Haley gets here. Just hit the green button for delivery, red for pickup. Don't mess it up. Sterling glanced at the touchscreen. No training video, no manual, just a cluttered screen with mismatched buttons and faded labels. He leaned over to ask the girl beside him, but she turned away without a word and plugged in her earbuds. 20 minutes in, a customer walked in, a middle-aged man with a limp and a plastic grocery bag in hand. He stepped up to the counter and placed a small order, just a sandwich, no sides. As Sterling rang it up, Troy appeared beside him. That guy always pays cash, always asks for extra sauce. Don't give it to him unless he begs, Sterling frowned. Why not? He's a mooch. Comes in a few times a week. We're not a charity. Sterling didn't respond. Instead, he handed the man his receipt and quietly added 2 extra sauces to the bag. The man smiled and nodded. When Troy walked away, the cashier next to Sterling whispered, "He docks our drawer totals if we give out more than 2 sauces without charging. Even if we're under." Sterling kept his tone steady. "That ever happened to you?" She nodded once. "Last Thursday. I gave a mom an extra ranch for her kids' nuggets. Got written up. By noon, the line was out the door. The ovens beeped constantly, and the fryer hissed like it was seconds from boiling over. Orders piled up on the warming rack, some of them missing drinks or sides. No one double-checked. A driver burst in, grabbing 2 bags, and ran out without a word. Sterling followed suit, taking the next run with barely enough time to read the address. It was a delivery to a pediatric clinic. The note on the order asked for no pickles and said it was for a child with severe allergies. When Sterling opened the bag to make sure, he found the sandwich labeled incorrectly. He stepped back inside and flagged down the kitchen lead, an older man with a scar across one knuckle and a stained apron. "This sandwich is wrong." "The kid's allergic." The man looked at the slip, then at Sterling. "Tell them to scrape it off. I'm not delivering something that could send a kid to the hospital." The man sighed and made a new one, tossing the bad sandwich in a trash bin already overflowing with half-used bread and spoiled lettuce. Sterling drove the correct order to the clinic and apologized for the delay. The receptionist looked surprised to hear a driver care that much. "We usually have to call to fix stuff," she said. "Thanks for catching it." Back at the store, Troy was pacing behind the counter, phone pressed to his ear. He glanced at Sterling. "You were gone too long." "I fixed a mislabeled allergy order." Troy held up a hand while continuing his call. "No, I already said we can't refund that." "It was delivered." "Yeah, well, that's not my issue." Sterling waited until he hung up. "You don't seem worried about allergies," Troy scoffed. "I'm not worried about people trying to scam free meals. That's 90% of our allergy calls. You'll learn." Sterling bit his tongue. He wasn't there to argue, he was there to learn. But each hour made that harder. Around 2 in the afternoon, Haley finally arrived. She looked pale, her hair tied up loosely, and she walked with a slight limp. "You all right?" Sterling asked quietly as they both headed toward the delivery shelf. "Twisted my ankle getting out of my car yesterday. Didn't want to call off. Troy said he'd mark me no call, no show if I did." Sterling's jaw tightened. "Did you ask for a lighter shift today?" She gave a bitter laugh. "I asked to stay in store." He said all drivers drive or they find another job. They loaded into her car. The AC didn't work and the passenger seat had a tear in the fabric that exposed the foam. "You ever get reimbursed for gas?" "No, they said it's factored into the hourly rate." "Which is minimum." "What about tips?" She gestured to a cup with a few crumpled bills. "People tip cash less now, and half the online orders don't tip anything." It was quiet for a while after that. They dropped off 2 orders in silence. On the way back, Haley finally spoke again. "You're different. Most new hires either quit or stop talking after a week. You ask questions." "I used to run a small business," Sterling said, choosing his words carefully. "Trying to learn how things work here." She nodded slowly. "Well, you're seeing it." When they returned, the kitchen smelled like burnt oil, and one of the younger employees was arguing with Troy near the back. "I told you I can't close tonight," the boy said, voice cracking. "Too bad," Troy replied. "You're on the schedule." "My sister's graduation, then find someone to cover or don't come back tomorrow." Sterling stepped forward. "Isn't there anyone else who can cover?" Troy turned. You want to start volunteering for close shifts now, if it means not forcing a kid to miss his sister's graduation, yeah. Troy rolled his eyes. You don't run this place. Sterling stared at him. No, but someone should. The boy left quietly, head down. No one said anything for a long time after that. Sterling stayed late, helping clean the prep table and mop the sticky floor. The teenage cashier had already left, and the kitchen lead disappeared into the back room without a word. Before he clocked out, Haley caught his arm. Thanks for saying something earlier. Most people wouldn't. Sterling nodded. You shouldn't be limping through 10-hour shifts. That's not okay. No, she said, but it's normal. He left the store in silence, the parking lot nearly empty. The fluorescent sign buzzed above the entrance, casting a harsh light on the cracked pavement below. He sat in his car for several minutes, thinking. There was no single problem. It was deeper than that. A culture had taken root, one built on fear, fatigue, and indifference. And it started with who was allowed to lead. The next morning, Sterling left his phone on silent and drove straight to store 12. He didn't stop for coffee, didn't check his schedule. He just showed up. The night's sleep hadn't dulled anything. If anything, the edge in his chest had only sharpened. When he walked in, the lights were already on, but the air was heavy quiet in a way that didn't feel calm. Troy was leaning against the prep counter, scrolling on his phone, tapping the screen with slow, distracted thumbs. He didn't look up. A new face stood behind the register. A young man with a buzz cut and a stiff posture, maybe 19, fidgeted with the touchscreen, tapping buttons with hesitant fingers. Sterling approached and lowered his voice. First day, the kid nodded. Started 10 minutes ago. No one's told me how to do anything yet, just said figure it out. Sterling glanced behind the counter. No one else was helping. You got a name, Marcus. Sterling pointed at the menu. Let's walk through it. He spent the next 20 minutes walking Marcus through the basics: how to take an order, how to ring in substitutions, where to find the allergy flags. Troy didn't move the entire time. Finally, Marcus asked, so wait, if someone says they have a dairy allergy, do we use the gluten-free bun or just leave off cheese? Sterling turned to Troy. What's the protocol for allergies? Troy finally looked up. Unless they're foaming at the mouth in front of us, I don't take it seriously. If they call, I tell them we're not a hospital. Marcus blinked. Sterling stepped forward. That's not a joke. That's a liability. Do you have any idea what that could cost us? Troy shrugged, eyes back on his phone. I've been here 5 years, never had a lawsuit. Sterling's voice dropped. That's not the same as doing it right. Before Troy could respond, the back door swung open and the kitchen lead from yesterday strutted in, snapping his gloves on. We out of roast beef again. I told the morning guy to order more. Not my fault if he didn't. Sterling turned. What's your name, Carlos? You're supposed to track inventory, right? Carlos looked up. I do it when it matters. Sterling nodded slowly. So what happens when a customer orders something and we don't have it? Carlos snorted. We tell him to pick something else or cancel. Not my problem what they wanted. Troy laughed faintly behind him. See, Carlos knows how it works. Sterling felt heat rising behind his neck. He looked at Marcus, who was now quietly typing in an order for a woman waiting at the counter. Can you handle things out front for a few minutes? Sterling asked. Marcus nodded, unsure. Sterling walked into the back, past the fryers, past the supply racks, and turned into the small office. He shut the door behind him, pulled off his glasses, and took out his phone. He dialed a number he hadn't used in months. Michelle, it's Sterling. I need you to come to store 12 right now. Bring HR. There was a pause on the other end, then a quiet, it's that bad. Yes, he said. Worse? 30 minutes later, the office door opened and Michelle stepped in, wearing a sharp navy blazer and carrying a leather folder. She looked at him, then at the store through the small glass window. Tell me everything. Sterling briefed her, quickly and without filters. He kept his voice low, but firm. When he finished, Michelle nodded once and left the room. 5 minutes later, she called Troy and Carlos into the office. Troy walked in first, casual. What, we doing surprise evaluations now? Carlos followed, chewing gum. Michelle closed the door behind them. Sit down. Sterling stood, Troy's eyes flicked between them. Wait, what is this? Sterling spoke calmly. I'm not Sam. My name is Sterling Whitmore. I own this company. And I've spent the last 3 days watching the two of you run this store like it's your own personal playground." Troy stared at him, mouth slightly open. Carlos blinked twice, then shook his head. "No way, you're lying." "I'm not," Sterling said. "And I'm done watching." Michelle opened her folder. "We've documented multiple violations, mishandling of allergy requests, inappropriate responses to customers, dereliction of duty, threatening to falsify attendance records. Not to mention your failure to train new hires and your refusal to maintain basic inventory standards." Troy's tone shifted. "Hold on, this is all being twisted. I've kept this store running with no help, no budget. You want to blame someone, start with corporate." Sterling didn't flinch. "You've had enough budget to do your job, you chose not to. You treated your position like power, not responsibility. That ends today." Carlos crossed his arms. "So what, you're firing us?" Michelle didn't look up. "Effective immediately." Troy stood up, voice rising. "You'll regret this. Nobody else wants this job. You'll be begging me back in a week." Sterling stepped toward the door. "I'd rather shut this store down than let it keep operating under people like you." Troy stormed out. Carlos followed, muttering something under his breath. Sterling turned to Michelle. "Call in backup from store 14. I want a temporary lead here today, and get Marcus off the register. He needs proper training." Michelle nodded and stepped out. Sterling walked back onto the floor. Marcus looked up from the register, uncertain. "You're doing fine," Sterling told him. "You're not alone anymore." Then he found Haley, who had just walked in. Her limp was worse. She looked surprised to see him at the front counter without his glasses. He approached her gently. "You shouldn't be working today." She looked confused. "What's going on?" "I'm the owner. I've been undercover, and what I saw here wasn't acceptable." Her eyes widened. "I want you to take today off, with pay. You'll be transferred to a new store starting tomorrow under a manager who actually leads." She blinked twice. "You're serious?" Sterling nodded. "Completely. You deserve better than this." She didn't speak for several seconds. Then she whispered, "Thank you." He turned back to the rest of the team. A dishwasher peeked out from the back, watching from behind the prep rack. A cashier froze mid-swipe at the register. A prep cook slowly lowered a tray of sandwich fixings. Sterling raised his voice just enough to be heard. "I know this has been a rough place to work. That changes now. If you want to stay, you'll have support. If you want to leave, I'll make sure you get a clean reference and your last paycheck in full. But no one here will ever be disrespected again or forced to lie to a customer just to hit a number." No one spoke, but something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a quiet pause, a stillness that hadn't existed in that store for a long time. Sterling took a breath. He'd spent years building from the top down. Maybe now it was time to rebuild from the floor up. 2 days later, Sterling returned to store 12 without disguise. No hoodie, no glasses, no fake name. He wore a plain button-down shirt, slacks, and a badge clipped to his belt that simply read Sterling Whitmore Owner. The parking lot was quieter than usual. Operations had been scaled back temporarily. No late closings, no double shifts, no unsupervised inventory. Michelle had assigned a temporary store lead from store 14, a steady-handed assistant manager named Darnell, who'd arrived the morning after the firings. Sterling had spent the last 48 hours working out a strategy with HR, operations, and legal. He didn't want a band-aid. He wanted the infection gone. Inside, the store was busy but not frantic. The prep station was stocked, the floors were clean, and the phones were being answered by a new hire, a woman in her 30s with a calm voice and a notepad beside her. She logged every issue, took down names, and promised callbacks within the hour. Darnell met Sterling at the front, wiping his hands on a towel. "We're holding it down," he said. "Took me most of yesterday to get the place back in shape. Had to pull a few people from other stores to cover the gaps, but we'll get through the week." Sterling nodded. "How'd the team respond?" "Cautious. Some of them are waiting for the other shoe to drop, but they're showing up, working hard, especially that kid Marcus. He's got potential, picks up fast, asks smart questions." Sterling scanned the store. "Where is he now?" "On his lunch. First one he's taken since he got here." Sterling walked behind the counter, stopping short when he caught sight of Haley. She was speaking softly to a new driver, gesturing toward the warming rack and pointing out what to check before taking off. Her ankle was wrapped in a brace, and she wore compression sleeves under black work pants, still limping but steadier. When she turned and saw him, she gave a small nod. "You're not hiding anymore." "No reason to," he said. "I came to check on you. I'm fine, just tired, but Darnell's been fair." Real training, clear schedules. He even asked if I needed fewer stairs on my route. "You do?" I said yes. Didn't have to explain it twice. Sterling tilted his head. "You want to stay here long term?" She hesitated. "I don't know. Depends on what this place becomes." I've been in stores where things changed for a week, maybe two. Then the old habits came back. He didn't try to reassure her. He just said, "That's not going to happen this time." In the back, Sterling found Marcus sitting on an overturned milk crate near the supply shelves, quietly eating a sandwich. He looked up, surprised. "Did I mess something up?" "No," Sterling said. "I wanted to thank you." Marcus looked confused. "For what?" "For showing up and sticking with it. We didn't make it easy on you. You deserved better." Marcus wiped his hands on a napkin. "I almost walked out that first day. I thought it was just how things were supposed to be. Now, I don't know. Feels like maybe it doesn't have to be." "It doesn't," Sterling said. "But I need people like you to hold the line. We're rebuilding this place, not just this store, but the whole system. Better training, actual accountability, and a clear path to promotion for people who show they care." Marcus blinked. "Promotion? You've got instincts. You look for the details. That matters." "I've never thought about running anything. I just started." Sterling leaned against the wall. "So did I once. My first job was scrubbing pans in the back of our flagship store. I never planned to take over the company, but when you care about something, sometimes leadership finds you." Marcus looked down, then gave a small nod. "Okay." Sterling clapped him lightly on the shoulder. "Finish your break. Then come find me. I want your input on the new training materials." He left Marcus in the back and walked through the store again, keeping his pace slow, his eyes open. He didn't miss the subtle changes. The kitchen staff checking labels before stacking ingredients. Drivers verifying delivery bags before heading out. No one yelling, no one ignoring customers. In the office, Michelle was reviewing a printed schedule when he stepped in. "I sent corporate the incident logs from the last 2 weeks," she said. "There's a pattern." "I know," Sterling said. "We let autonomy turn into neglect. We trusted experience over behavior. That ends now." Michelle slid a binder across the desk. "Here's the new store lead candidates. I've got 3 strong options, all internal. All with clean HR records and consistent team feedback." Sterling flipped through the binder. One name stood out, Haley. She's never managed, but she's respected, knows the delivery side, quiet but firm, and she's already mentoring new hires without being asked. He closed the binder. "Let's offer her assistant manager. Give her time to grow into it. No pressure, just opportunity," Michelle nodded. "And the driver incentives. Roll them out this quarter. Mileage reimbursement, bonus tiers for 0 error weeks, and a hotline to report unsafe routes or unreasonable hours, anonymous if needed." "What about Troy and Carlos? Legal's asking if we want to contest any claims." "Don't waste the energy," Sterling said. "They weren't fired for a mistake. They were fired for a pattern. Let the records speak for themselves." Michelle stood. "I'll get these in motion." Sterling stayed in the office for a few more minutes, then stepped back out onto the floor. The lunch rush had started. A steady stream of customers filtered in: construction workers, nurses, a mother with a stroller. Orders were taken efficiently, food came out hot, and one of the newer drivers double-checked his route on a printed map before heading out. As Sterling moved toward the front, a man in slacks and a tucked-in polo stepped through the door. Regional manager. He looked around, eyes scanning. Sterling approached. "You're here to evaluate." "Yes, I had this place flagged. Didn't expect to see you here." "I needed to be. I got too far removed. Looks like it's turning around." Sterling looked across the counter at Marcus, now confidently helping a customer customize a sandwich order. Behind him, Haley was managing the delivery board, coordinating runs with calm, clipped instructions. "It is," Sterling said. "But we're not done." He stayed until the afternoon rush ended. Then he met with the whole team in the back: kitchen staff, cashiers, drivers, even the part-time dishwasher who usually kept to himself. No speeches, no corporate fluff, just a straightforward conversation. He asked what they needed. Not once, not rhetorically, he listened, took notes. One asked for non-slip mats near the fryer. Another requested a clearer policy on shift trades. Someone mentioned the cooler door sticking. Sterling wrote it all down, and then he said, "If you see something wrong, say it. If you feel unsafe, tell us. If you're working hard and not being treated fairly, we'll fix it, but you have to speak. You have a voice now, use it." They didn't clap, they didn't cheer, but they nodded, and that was enough. He left the store that evening without fanfare, walking to his car as the sun dipped low behind the strip mall roofline. The lot was still cracked, the sign still buzzed faintly. But inside, something real had shifted, not a miracle, but a beginning, and he'd be watching.